Resource Compost is dedicated to mitigating climate change through landfill use reduction and to educating on the important subject of sustainability. Mary Beth is a climate reality leader and has been awarded the Governor's Environmental Hero Award for her efforts at her daughter's elementary school. She serves as the We Compost Recognition Program Committee Chair of the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition. And she's at her happiest when building community through sustainability. So we're very grateful to have her with us today. And without further ado, I will turn it over to you, Mary Beth.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thanks for inviting me to talk to you on this beautiful day. I have a script. I'm not going to pretend like I don't. So if I'm not looking at the green light the whole time, you'll know why, because I don't want to forget to tell you something. So because you're all climate activists like me, I was fairly certain that my normal presentation would be review for you. So I did the opposite of dumbing it down. And if I went too far and there are things that, that you don't understand, I really hope that you will ask questions at the end and learn as much as possible from this. So, okay, so I need to, am I a host? I am a host? Okay.
Correct,
so
yep.
This is the first time I'm sharing my screen.
Great,
So
you got it.
Exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here it is. Share.
Yep, I can see it.
You can see my notes though, right?
Correct,
So
yeah.
I have to hit play, I think. All right, that's better, huh?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Okay, so Collective Resource Compost is a mission-based, woman-owned food scrap hauling company based in Evanston that has been doing this important work for a decade. Let's see. Here's a cute picture of us from when we only had 3 trucks. Now we have 7 Sprinter trucks and a box truck. We also have 22 full and part-time employees. In front is Erlene Howard, our boss lady. She's sitting on a pyramid of our 5-gallon buckets and is flanked by our 32-gallon totes. Food waste is not particularly photogenic, but this one wasn't too bad. So why do we want to divert food scraps from the landfill by composting? Food scraps do not belong in landfills because landfills are not the right environment for biodegradation. The food scraps create methane, a greenhouse gas that is 34 times more damaging than CO2. And composting is something you can do to mitigate climate change no matter who is in the White House. I just added that bullet. This is a photo of a landfill. I wanted you to see that it all gets covered in plastic. Do you see that in the back there? That's why food scraps can't biodegrade there. They need oxygen and they're not getting any here. Oh no. Okay. This is what windrow composting looks like. I wish there were a person in the photo for scale because you'd see that the piles are really tall. They look like giant Toblerone candy bars. You can picture that. I hope that seeing the difference between the 2 environments of a landfill and a commercial composting facility helps you understand how different they are and why food scraps don't biodegrade at landfills. So, how can we divert food scraps from landfills? By composting. Commercially, with a service like ours, Collective Resource Compost provides receptacles in which you collect your food scraps. We divert them from the landfill by taking them to a commercial composting facility. So, where can we compost? So this is our service area map. This is where you can compost with us. We go north to Lake Bluff, northwest to Buffalo Grove, Arlington Heights and Schaumburg, and south to Pilsen and South Lawndale. This is what you can compost with us. So it's different with the different haulers. So So when I say what you can compost with us, this is like if you were using us. It might be slightly different with other haulers. So this is, you know, these are pictures of what you can compost. My things are a little bit out of order. 1 second. Okay, so that top row is baked goods, food, soiled paper, fruits and vegetables. The second row is eggshells and bones, coffee grounds and filters, tea bags, cheese. And the third row is compostable disposables made from plants, meat and fish, pencils, and blue masking tape. And this is for the readers. You might see some surprises on this list. This is all on our website too. Give me a thumbs up when you're done reading. Okay, good. It's time for some composting vocab. Container swap model. So this is a model that swaps out the whole container, giving you a clean container as opposed to dumping the contents into a truck and leaving a dirty container. This is the model we use. We think it makes it less yucky for the customer and therefore more doable. Yard waste tag-along or food scrap tag-along. I've heard it called both things. And it's a model that lets residents add food scraps to their yard waste cart during the usually 8-month yard waste collection season. So I've heard it both ways because you're tagging along the food scraps to a yard waste cart. If that makes sense. This model is what we refer to as low-hanging fruit. Most municipalities already had programs for diverting yard waste from landfills since it was banned back in the 90s. This can be a good first step for municipalities because often there's no additional cost to add your food scraps. Often, but sometimes there is. But it also has some major blind spots. In the equity department, it only provides an opportunity for single-family homes because they are the ones with yard carts. It makes no provision for multi-unit dwellings like condos, co-ops, and apartment buildings. It also leaves out businesses. Often, as I said, it's only 8 months out of the year from April to December. So you have all these people who have gotten into the habit of separating out their compostable waste. And for a third of the year, that service goes away. In Evanston, we solved that problem by offering what we call a winter gap program. So we have customers who toggle back and forth between the two services. So from April to December, they tag along their food scraps to their yard waste, and then they use our winter gap program in the winter. Okay, municipal franchise agreement. This is an agreement between a municipality and a hauler that gives the selected hauler exclusive rights to hauling in that municipality. Usually that means lower prices for the residents and businesses. So we currently have 3 municipal franchise agreements. In our hometown of Evanston, there's a food scrap tag-along program hauled by Groot. We are the exclusive container swap model for residents and the exclusive hauler for businesses. That began in November 2018. In January 2020, we became the exclusive food scrap hauler for our next door neighbors, the village of Skokie. And beginning December 1st, 2020, we will be adding the village of Morton Grove. I'm going to go back to the service area map so you can see I'm going to try to go back to the service area map so you can see those orange areas. Is this? Oh, yeah, there it is. Oops. Okay, so those orange areas, that's Evanston and Skokie, And then Morton Grove is not orange yet on the map because it becomes official this coming Monday. So this one's like hot off the press. So Evanston has a reputation for being a greener suburb, but Skokie and Morton Grove do not. So that makes us even happier to have those agreements in those cities. And so you may notice that Skokie borders Evanston and Morton Grove is the village just west of Skokie. It's clear that there might be some subtle peer pressure at play here. Okay, I'm gonna go back to where we were. Okay, so this says, what's the goal here, MB? Everyone diverting all of their food scraps, however that is possible for you. Requesting a composting option from your municipality. Composting communally and building community through sustainability. So how can I compost communally? Using our neighbor totes. 32-gallon totes, $24 per pickup can cost as little as $1 per day per person. This is what we use in multi-unit dwellings, but they also are used in with friends and neighbors. And this Neighbor Totes program we actually conceived of. We'd been using these receptacles, but we felt like we had to give people more of an idea of how to use them, because people kind of got stuck on the idea that if they're composting at their home, they need to use our 5-gallon buckets. And that's not the case. If you can do it with other people, do it communally using a bigger receptacle. All right. So for whatever reason, probably because I was going quickly, there was a slide that is not in here now. And I wanted to, before we start the audience participation, I just wanted to talk about that a little. I mean, we're not the only game in town. You know, there are other companies doing the same kind of container swap model. And we feel like we have no competition, that we all need to be doing this work, and that everybody has different service areas and different, we're just all a little different. And so using a different company is, okay by me. And also composting at home. Like if you have a backyard, if you have space to do a backyard composting bin, I highly recommend it. It's magical seeing it happen. But I also, when I was saying, what's the goal here, MB? Diverting all of your food scraps, everyone diverting all of their food scraps is the goal, so that we can recover those resources. And so if you compost in your yard, you can't divert unless you don't eat meat and never ever waste anything. Nothing ever goes bad in your fridge. Then you can't divert all of your food scraps in your yard waste bin. And sometimes it gets filled up before it biodegrades quickly enough for you to spread it. And then there's also vermicomposting, which is a way, if you're like a DIY person and you like pets, you can have, worms for pets that, compost your food for you. And the compost that is created with vermicomposting is like top notch. So if you feel like that's a kind of a fun science project that you would want to take on, then I would recommend doing that. But again, it's like you can't divert all of your food scraps that way. So you might want to do that plus something else. Okay, so audience participation time. So one of the bummers for me about COVID is that I used to do a lot of in-person events where I would be at a table and you would come up to my table and we would get to know each other, and I would find out from you, you know, a bunch of things like where you live and what kind of building you live in, and I could lay out your composting options for you. You know, and kind of figure out what your mitigating factors are. So I would love for you to type the name of your city in the chat. And if you're in Chicago, also please add the neighborhood. And this is, while you're waiting, although you probably did it while I was talking, this is my all-time favorite zero waste event photo of me. It was a Girl Scout event in Grant Park. We were wearing biodegradable gloves when we help sort at events. And it was a windy day in downtown Chicago, and one of my gloves blew away, and this little, obviously before COVID, this little girl caught it, and she put it on, and I showed her, you know, what I was doing and how it was used, and I just couldn't resist staging a high five shot. And you can see behind me is one of our 32-gallon totes. All right, okay, wait, we have to go back. No, let's not go to this one yet. So the where do you live? So you guys all did that. I have to get up to that. Okay, Jerry, I'm going to ask you to read those answers to me, because I can't easily with the screen sharing get to the chat.
Sure, no problem. We've got about a dozen or so here. I've got Lakeview. Do you want me to just read them all to you?
Yeah.
Lincoln Park, New Lenox, Uptown.
Is that a town or a neighborhood?
I believe that's a town, right?
Okay.
You know, I'm going to allow unmute here, so the individual who actually posted that, I'm trying to see who that was. That was Sharon. Let's see.
Said it's a southern town.
Okay.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Evanston, Logan Square, Ravenswood, Pilsen, North Center.
Yeah. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, cool. So really the only one I don't know if there is a composting option for is New Lenox. And so I'm going to come back to that. Okay. So all of the other neighborhoods have several options. I mean, the container swap, I know Chicago doesn't have a municipal composting contract, but you have lots of container swap company options. Okay, so the next one is, what kind of building do you live in? So type one of these in the chat: single family home or multi-unit dwelling. Yeah, it's weird, I can't see the chat. Oh, wait.
Can you see these, Mary Beth, or do you need me to read these?
So,
you want me to read them off to you?
Yeah, do we have some of each?
Yeah, it looks like I'm counting here. Looks like most are multi-unit, but there are a small percentage that are single family. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I can tell you. Okay, so in Evanston, as you heard before, we have a franchise agreement. And so that means that we're the only ones who do container swap. There's a yard waste tag along. So if you, is the Evanston person in a multi-unit dwelling? Can we get an answer?
This is Renee. No, I'm in a duplex. So
you have a yard?
Yeah, I have a yard and I have a yard waste container. So
Oh,
yeah, so
cool.
I use that during the warm weather, and I actually, our church does a cooperative composting through collective resource during
Which church?
the Unitarian Church.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So our our owner founder is
Right,
a Unitarian and belongs
right,
to
right,
that
right,
church.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've had that for years, which is
yeah,
great.
yeah.
Okay, so you're taken care of. And so that is, you said Renee, is that your name?
Correct. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So you don't have to be the owner. Well, there are other churches who have these sorts of situations where you could go and drop off your compost, and it costs less because you're doing it communally. So
Right.
this is one of the things that, you know, I would love for you guys to take what you learned today and kind of bring it to your community. So not just you alone in your home, but take this knowledge and see if you can, you know, start it at your work. You know, and I know COVID makes it super crazy, and maybe that's not right now. But you know, be creative about how to do it communally, how to bring other people in who maybe this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately. You know, we have kind of like environmentalists are all in this bubble, and but we all have friends who are in that next level out, you know, so it's like, how can you, you know, without shaming anybody into doing it, because that's never good, that doesn't work very well, just being, leading by example and being super positive and educational about it, and maybe hosting a neighbor tote so that uh, other people can add to yours. And so as far as neighbor totes goes, like, we really, when we rebranded it, we really thought houses of worship, because people are going to houses of worship, and you know, 1 or 2 times a week, you know, at least once a week, hopefully. But so it's not so hard to that just bring along your compost when you go. So Renee actually could probably be, if you're looking to start one at your house of worship, Renee might be a good person to, you know,
Yeah,
ask
I'm
about
certainly,
the ins and outs.
yeah, my, my computer speakers are kind of cutting in and out, so pardon me if I speak over you or if I fade out. But yeah, certainly, I've taken on managing it. So,
Yeah,
yeah, so,
rock star.
yeah. So, the challenge though, like you say, is getting people turned on to do it. We have our congregation is quite large, hundreds, and we have 20 faithful people who participate. And that's a little discouraging to me, but nonetheless, I have to look at it. Okay, we have 20 people. That's great, and they're very
Right.
faithful. And I remind them to pay their monthly bill. I have a spreadsheet, and they pay faithfully, and they're excited. But getting other people excited is even people who are very progressive and who believe in composting. Some of them do it at home. Of course, some of them do it in the summer with their yard waste. But nonetheless, it's a challenge. And I won't say any more because I don't want to take a lot of time. But
So one of the things that I thought of is having like outposts that are not maybe the house of worship itself, you know, so it's sort of sponsored by the house of worship, but it's located someplace that's maybe closer to people. Okay, so that's Evanston. So as far as Chicago goes, as I said, you have a lot of options. So you have container swap model that will like come to your building and switch out containers. If you live, so if you're in a multi-unit dwelling, I always suggest starting yourself and becoming an expert about it, and then rolling it out to maybe using a tote and keeping it in a, you don't want it in a public place, because there's too much contamination that way, but you do want it, you want it easy access for people. So my boyfriend lives in a co-op. I'm actually here right now because he has better internet service than I do. And we have a tote at the bottom of the stairs. There are 3 different wings. You know, it's like kind of an older co-op building, but we all go out the back stairs, and the tote is at the bottom of the stairs. So everybody in this wing can use this one. We've rolled it out to a second wing, and we're going to roll it out to a third wing, if that makes sense. And so everybody has countertop containers. In fact, I'm going to show you ours. I'll be right back. We have the kind of pretty top of the line one. It's got a charcoal filter. It's filled to the brim with food scraps. We line it with a paper bag. See, we eat a lot of bananas, apparently. We line it with a paper bag. Sometimes we line it with a little origami newspaper pocket thing. So that's multi-unit buildings in Chicago. There's also another company called, if you feel like you can't have it on site for whatever reason, you can't have a bucket on site, you don't have a good place to either keep it, you know, in your apartment or near your apartment, there's a company called Block Bins that has lots of different totes in Chicago, in alleys, but they have locks on them. So it's a drop-off thing. It's a communal thing. It's not cheaper than using, it's not less expensive than using our totes, but it can be a great option for people who feel like they're going to get pushback from their building, because you take it from your countertop bin, like the one I just showed you, straight to the bin in the alley. And so you can find out if there's one near you, or you can request one. So that's called Block Bins. So those are your options. As far as Sharon in New Lenox goes, I think that what needs to happen there is more of that, like asking for it in your municipality. So in whatever way, if you have a alderman, talking to your alderman. There's also, this was something I could not manage to make a slide of this, but I want to tell you guys about. On the Illinois Food Scrap Coalition website, there's a list under the We Compost Recognition Program that I'm in charge of municipalities. And those are all of the ones in Illinois that have yard waste tag-alongs or any kind of composting program. So it's something that you can point to say, all of these other towns have this, why don't we have this? And start to get the conversation going. Okay, let's see where I am with my slides. Oh, this is a fun slide. So this is, sorry, I have the window open because it's summer today. So for residential pickup, we use these 5-gallon Home Depot-like buckets with lids. And this slide depicts how many buckets of food scraps my family of 4 with a weekly pickup diverted over the course of 8 years. So 416 buckets times 5 gallons equals 2,080 gallons. So it really adds up if you keep at it. So this is, these are other ideas on how to reduce food waste so that you have even less to compost. So making a conscious effort to buy less food. So, you know, not cramming your refrigerator full of food, just, you know, and filling the space, but like just making a conscious effort to
try to buy only what you can eat. Pay attention to what you buy that is going bad in your refrigerator. So, I mean, you can compost those, but ideally you would be learning along the way of what you're just not eating. Like I call it wishful shopping. like you buy these things you know are good for you, but you don't ever eat them. You're just buying them. It's like what I used to do. I would get a health club membership but never go. Ordering less at restaurants. That's easy to do now that we're not going to restaurants. It's sad. Freezing food before it goes bad. So that's another way that you can kind of get ahead of it. Okay. So can't get enough of me. I write a blog every month for our collective resource compost community called Greener Living Inspirations, which is, I get great pleasure out of doing this. I'm lucky enough that my employer really lets me write about anything I want to. And some months I don't say compost even once.
I just wanted to say there's a lot of yelling going on outside. Biden was just announced as the winner.
Oh my gosh!
Saw that.
Yay!
So
I wondered what that was.
I know. I was too. I just wanted to let you guys know.
Oh, happy day.
Yay! Thanks. Yeah, I heard the cheering. I wondered that was probably what it was for.
Yeah, all right.
Great news. Yeah.
That is great news. That is great news for the environment.
Yes.
And our futures. I think you guys all know that.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so here's how to reach me. Feel free to email me with any questions, with really anything you want to talk about. I've got time. And that's it. Thank you so much for inviting me and letting me talk.
Yes, that was wonderful. Thank you so much, Mary Beth.
You're welcome. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to answer any questions, no matter how big or small.
I actually have a question. I'm really curious about like the science, I guess, behind composting. So, like, how long does it take for the food waste to turn into soil, and like, what does that process look like? I know you all follow industrial composting, so
Right.
does that add heat to it? I'm just kind of curious about the process.
So at the commercial composting facility, they grind everything up. So everything gets a better start that way than if you were to keep like the pizza box intact and put it in the compost pile. So everything gets ground up. And the piles, as you saw in that slide, are bigger. So that means that everything gets hotter. And, there is some amount of processing that goes on. I was just talking to a compost hauler and processor in Peoria, Illinois. And he was talking about that, you also sometimes need to add water to it to get it going. And particularly in your backyard bin, you really want a good mix of green and brown. So that actually helps everything work better too. So green is like food scraps, and brown is like dried leaves or shredded paper. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's super helpful. Yeah, grinding everything up to get the process started makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is Renee. I have a couple questions. First of all, that's great news that Morton Grove and Skokie are coming on board.
Isn't it?
Yeah. Does that mean that they can compost in their yard waste during the warm months?
Well, so it's different in every city, and that's the thing that is like so confusing. That's why I wanted to know where you all lived, because it's different. Like
Okay.
some towns have yard waste programs, but no container swap program.
Okay.
A lot of towns don't have anything. So to answer your question, are you talking about Skokie or Morton Grove?
Well, either.
Okay,
Either.
so
let's start with Evanston. Evanston has yard waste totes.
Right.
And most people use those. I think you can use bags if you buy stickers or something, but you can't put food scraps in the bags.
Right.
Okay. And so Skokie doesn't have any kind of, they don't have a yard waste tag along because they don't have totes. They only use bags.
I see.
So that would be a mess, you know,
Yeah.
because that you can't use the bags that,
Right.
I mean, I was reading about other towns that do it. I don't know how they do it because, you know, animals are very interested in those bags then and can tear them apart, and that's a mess. You know, the totes provide like a barrier. And Morton Grove they started a yard waste tag along in the spring. So they have a 8-month program. And I think they wanted to like get that going before they added on a container swap program, just to like, you know, start something.
And I guess, and then just my second question is, in the yard waste, like in Evanston, we're lucky, we can put our food scraps in the yard waste. Is it the same list of things that you can put in the yard waste as you can give to collective resource?
It's approximately the same things.
Okay.
And again, that's not the same in all towns. Like in Wilmette, they have a composting program, but it's a lot less. I think you can't put meat in theirs.
Yeah, I wondered. Okay.
And so do you know that on the City of Evanston website, there are, you know, that thing I showed you, that those pictures and the list, those are on the city's website.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can look at the differences.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I just wanted to say that at our church, we do have some people who do the warm weather months through their yard waste, and then they switch to the church. So that's something. So we have a pretty good system set up. We just need to get more people. But yeah. If anybody, I mean, I'd be happy to share with anybody like how we set it up, and the spreadsheet is pretty simple and it works, and we actually bill people, but everybody pays $5 a month to be in the program. So
that's great.
Yeah, it's so super cheap.
So I wonder, I mean, have you thought about introducing it to your neighbors? People who live around the.
Oh, you mean let them use the church composting?
Yeah.
Site? No, I haven't. That's a good question. It's a good question. I don't know if the church would feel like it's. I don't think they would, knowing but that's a good point. No, I haven't.
Because I think that could be that could be great.
It is great, yeah. Yeah, thanks for that idea.
Welcome. Thanks for all the good questions.
We have a few things in the chat. So Kimberly says, I got a lot out of this. I forgot to mention the Altgeld Sawyer Corner Farm takes compost on Wednesdays in warmer months. So that's good to know, the Altgeld Sawyer Corner Farm.
Cool.
Yeah, Babette has a question. Does the collective return full compost buckets to customers to spread in their yards?
So we're working on a more permanent way to do that. We have had programs like that where so 1 year we dropped off bags of compost. Last year we had a pickup program in conjunction with Healthy Soil Compost at a farm in the city. So right now we don't return compost to the customer directly like that. You know, a lot of our customers, our model was really built on servicing people who don't have yards and therefore don't need compost. So that's why we're a little more focused on the diverting the food scraps from the landfill and, you know, the educating on sustainability piece of it. Does that answer your question? So by, we're talking to Talking Farm about maybe using them, but we don't have an agreement with them yet. So since we don't have any land, we don't really have a great place where people could come pick it up from us. We don't process it ourselves. We just haul. Does that make sense?
Babette, does that answer your question? Oh, yes, she said yes, thanks. And then Sharon asked for the website and email again. So I did drop the website into the chat, but Mary Beth, do you mind typing the email address you'd like to share in the chat?
I'm going to go, well.
Or I think you might have had it on one of your slides, maybe.
Whoops. Right. Oh, wait, sorry. It's the next one. There it is.
Perfect. And I'll just type it in here if people want to copy it.
So one of the things that I wrote about on my blog 2 months ago was about waste bans that are happening in like around the country. And it's that same, I don't know, it's kind of an interesting topic because it's, we're talking a lot about like doing it on our own. And what also needs to happen is that legislation needs to be passed that makes it that the bigger producers, like, universities and, big food production places, that it's mandatory for them to not be sending their food scraps to a landfill or their food waste to a landfill. And so what happens when they enact these waste bans is that food donation goes up because they can't easily send it to the landfill. So they have to like figure that piece out. And overall waste goes down. So the amount that they need to be composting or donating goes down. So that's another thing that is good to be vocal about, is suggesting that in your municipality.
Yeah, do you happen to know if there are any ongoing campaigns right now?
Not that I know of, but there is a plastic pollution campaign. Do you know about that?
I think I know of like a larger scale one. I don't know of like a Illinois or
Right.
Chicago specific.
It's
okay.
It's
Yeah.
the United States, so you know about that one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Okay.
There are all sorts of kind of fun documentaries. I mean, I talk about this a lot in my blog if you want to like comb through it. There is there's one on food waste that Anthony Bourdain is the host of. Has anybody
cool.
seen that one? It's called, I'm not sure what the name of it is offhand. There's this other one called Just Eat It that always gets in the way of me remembering what. Oh, it's called Wasted.
I did see that one. Yeah, actually at a public screening in Chicago. It was really good.
What's great about that one is they go through the food recovery hierarchy, which is a pyramid. Yeah, people are
yeah, I hear.
beeping their horns.
It's exciting.
Yay!
I know.
So happy.
Yep.
But so the food, what I was saying, the pyramid that has the hierarchy of the EPA pyramid that has the hierarchy of food recovery is there, and they go through all of the work that's being done in all those areas.
Cool.
Is there any more questions?
Would you say the name of those two? My speaker went out when you mentioned the name of those two. They were YouTubes, or?
No, it's I think it's on Netflix.
Okay.
Wasted.
Okay.
I mean, it's a few years old now. I mean, if you're looking for current movies, has anybody seen David Attenborough's recent movie?
Oh no, I've heard of it. Yeah, I think I saw him on 60 Minutes. But
Yeah.
yeah.
It's great. It has the he's been doing nature
Mm-hmm.
documentaries his whole life.
Mhm.
And this is sort of like a witness statement in a documentary of his like life on this planet and kind of what's happening to it. But he's got like a little different of a spin that is I think is really thought-provoking.
Hmm.
Yeah, I love that one. And it's, I feel like you can't watch too many of them. Like all
I know.
it's depressing. But that one
Agreed.
is like, it's got some hopefulness to it.
Mhm.
I mean, the other one that is kind of depressing. I mean, I feel like, whatever is your comfort food, make sure it's on the ready. The story of plastics it's put out by the Story of Stuff
Oh.
project, Annie Leonard.
Mhm.
That's another good one. So are we done with the questions?
I think so, if no one has any other questions.
So
Yeah.
I have one question for you guys.
I have a question too, Mary Beth.
Oh, yeah.
Go ahead.
And this is coming from someone obviously who we talked earlier. I haven't actually done composting, and maybe you touched on this a little earlier, but with the 32-gallon bin, obviously that's a pretty huge container, and it's picked up weekly. You said, is that the normal pickup?
Well, it can be picked up every 2 weeks.
Okay.
That's what happens actually at my boyfriend's condo building here. And so the price is the same for each pickup, so it could be $24 every 2 weeks or $24 every week, depending on how quickly you fill it.
So let me, maybe this is, again, this is kind of showing my ignorance, but how do how do people normally, our customers normally handle the obvious things that come along with carrying a big container full of stuff like that? Smell, potential mold, issues with vermin, that sort of thing. I mean, and what's the advice there?
Okay, so it's a much cleaner model because we take the whole container. We're not tipping it, and so like I think you may be thinking more along the lines of the dumpsters that are in the alley. Those don't get cleaned,
Right.
So this model is much cleaner. We also bag them, and so unless the bag breaks for some reason inside the totes don't usually touch the food scraps. And if you're concerned about smell, I mean, it's kind of like if something smells terrible when you put it in there, then yeah, it's gonna continue to smell terrible and maybe start to smell even more terrible. But if you're like a little more mindful about when you put in the super stinky stuff, like sometimes it's kind of amazing what's going on outside here, especially for Evanston. Renee, are you hearing, like, is that happening in your neighborhood?
It's not. It's great
like,
though.
There's
Are
like
they fireworks?
Yes,
Oh.
fireworks. Amazing.
It's kind of fun.
Yes,
Yeah, it is.
great. So sometimes, like if you have something like super stinky, you put it in the freezer until the day before pickup, and then you throw it into the bin the day before pickup. So there's ways that you can mitigate that sort of thing. And the top is on, so it's got a top like this, so it's always closed. It's never open
And you kind of work with like trying to figure out what's the best place to keep it. Like we keep ours inside, and it's wheeled, so it's easy to, take it up the 6 steps that needs to happen in order for it to be put outside for pickup. So maybe you're strategic about where it is, and it can be in an inside place.
Sure. I mean, you mentioned earlier, right?
And also, yeah, and also like so for our buckets, like sometimes like if you get food on the outside of them, you're inviting vermin to come have a snack. But if you don't, then it's pretty contained, with the 2 kinds of lids that we have. But sometimes people will put some kind of barrier so that squirrels can't even like be on top of the bucket, like a flower pot or like a pan of some sort, so they can't eat around the edge of it.
Well, and as you said too, like in our building, I'm in a multi-unit building, and we fortunately do have a first level parking garage. We could easily put the container inside the garage rather than outside, right?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So,
and then some person is in charge of getting it outside for pickup day, or I don't know if you have any maintenance people who that could be their job. But like we don't have maintenance people that do it, and it manages to get out when it needs to get out, when it needs to be put out. And so you also have to make sure that you're not, that the empty containers can get stowed pretty quickly, because those empty ones are a lot more likely to walk away than the full ones. And, you have to compensate us for that if they get stolen.
No.
But I recommend that you start just on your own.
That's absolutely, and that's the plan. And that always was a plan, but yeah.
Then you get to see yourself like how little trash you have and how great that is. And then, so there's a mindfulness that comes with this practice. It's like a mindfulness practice.
Absolutely.
But you start to see like what your other garbage is, and then you want to have even less of that, so that makes you, maybe consider purchasing differently because of that,
right.
To reduce your single-use plastic. And it has some surprising benefits.
Yeah, just to share too, I'm a customer actually of Collective Resource, been for a couple years now, and I kind of had similar concerns to you, Jerry. I was like, oh, what if rats try to get in? Because there are a couple of rats around my place outside. Or what if it smells, especially in the summer? Because I do keep it just right outside my back door. But I've had 0 issues, like not even bugs, or like nothing's gotten close to it. We had a squirrel that didn't even touch it. That was like eating all my landlord's plants and didn't even go near it. It doesn't smell at all. Like, so I've been like really pleasantly surprised. It's so clean, so easy. I do that every other week. So they come pick it up every 2 weeks, and I just have the pail, which I fill up. So I've just, to Mary Beth's point, like see how much I am diverting from the landfill and feel really good about that. And then it does, with recycling and composting, I have very little actual garbage that goes to landfill, and I do want to get that down even more.
That's great to know. Thanks for sharing that, Melissa. And to your point and to Mary Beth's point, my husband and I made a conscious decision a while ago. This is analogous, to try to go low plastic. So we found that in the way we bought things, and the way we process things, and the way we recycled, that very little is ending up in our garbage can. And the question we're asking ourselves is, what's ending up in our garbage? Much of it is food scraps.
Right.
So that's kind of our last component now, is we need to send that to the right place. So, all this info has been really helpful. We're definitely going to get started with with the
Good.
service. So
You know, I would just say the same thing at the Unitarian Church. We have a great big bin in the parking lot, and I kind of check it periodically, and it's surprisingly not smelly and not dirty, and we don't have trouble with pests. So yeah, I think because collective resource keeps it so clean, you know, it's a clean swap, and it makes a big difference. So yeah, I'll just ditto that.
that's great. Great to know.
Great. Okay, so we've hit 11 o'clock. Have a lot of great feedback in the chats that this was fascinating, educational, wonderful. So thank you, Mary Beth.
Welcome.
You're
There's
free to stay on, or I'm going to go into a little bit about 350. So you're welcome to sign off, whichever you prefer.
I'm gonna see, I have to force quit to get out of this for
Okay.
whatever reason. So unless, I mean, I have to stop sharing in order for it to stop, right?
I think so. I don't know if we can do it, Jerry, on our end.
We can't force quit it,
Oh,
but
yeah.
if you just there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Great. So to share a little bit about 350 Chicago, I want to give an update on a couple of our campaigns. So one is our fossil fuel divestment campaign. We've been working to try to get the city of Chicago to divest their fossil fuel holdings in the top 200 oil, coal, and natural gas companies in their operational budget. So we were able to meet with the previous Treasurer administration, and we met with the current administration, and have been successful in getting the city to divest. So they are currently unwinding holdings in these companies and plan to sunset their current holdings by the year 2026. The current treasurer's office is working on incorporating that into their investment policy, and then they were going to share that with us when they have the policy written. So we checked in with them just a couple weeks ago, and they said, you know, October is budget season, so to check in again at Thanksgiving. So we'll check in then to see the draft they've written of the policy, investment policy. But we are still working and hoping to get this codified into law. So we do have an ordinance that we have a good amount of support on from the aldermen, and Maria Haddon of the 49th Ward is our chief sponsor. So we still want to get it passed through the city council that codifies it into law so that another administration who might not be amenable to it can't undo the work. So that's kind of trickling along because of COVID and like the city being busy. But we are still pushing for an ordinance and definitely want to get the city to make a statement about the work that they are doing, a public statement. So any questions on divestment? Okay. Another campaign we're working on is we are part of the Ready for 100 collective. So we are working with the Sierra Club and a bunch of other organizations like Little Village Environmental Justice Organization to get the city on 100% renewable energy. So as some of you might know, Chicago unanimously passed in 2018 a resolution to get the city on 100% renewable energy, both electricity and transportation by 2040. And so right now, what the Ready for 100 Coalition is doing is a listening campaign. So we still have to write the policy. So the city was supposed to have policy written by the end of 2020, but because of COVID again, like everything's delayed. So we're listening to all different communities, especially want to hear the voice of environmental justice communities and communities that have a higher energy burden. So energy burden means that they spend a higher percent of their income on their energy bills. So we want to really hear from those communities to understand what they would like to see as Chicago moves forward. What do they want to implement and put in place? So we already had one listening series, but we are going to do a second one. We only had about 70 unique participants in our previous series where we explained different like transportation in the city, renewable energy in the city, energy burden, pollution, and then had like once we had experts talk about these issues, we had an hour of community conversation about what people want to see. But because we only had 70 participants, we want to do it again. So if anyone wants to help in that planning process or just spread the word when we get the dates for that, that would be great. So that's what we're doing for renewable energy. And one last campaign I want to mention is the Clean Energy Jobs Act. So we are part of the Illinois Clean Jobs Coalition. So Alex McLeese in our group really represents us there. And we want to make sure that the state passes renewable energy legislation. So, and actually coming up on November 12th is a virtual lobby day for clean energy. So we'll have sent communication on that, and we will send communication again coming up just to make sure that everyone has that information. So if you're not currently on our email list serve and you would like to be, you can just type your name in the chat and we can add you, or sorry, type your name and email address into the chat and we can add you to our listserv so you can stay up to date on virtual lobby days and our work. And then lastly, if you are interested in getting involved with 350, feel free to send me an email. I will type it in here, my email address, and we can meet one-on-one and talk about the best way to dive in. But we definitely need help on our campaigns. We want to do like a Twitter storm, for example, for the divestment campaign. We have a research group that I know Hannah is part of. And so they put out our bi-weekly newsletter. So there's always like information and research to be done. Jerry's part of communications. So he makes sure that all of our social media and website gets all of our information out there and looks good. And then I'm part of the education committee, so helping to plan these monthly meetings and other educational events. Sylvia is part of our fundraising committee, so we are going to be doing a grant writing class coming up. So if anyone is interested in helping us to raise funds or learn how to write grants, we'll be doing that in December. So there's lots of ways to get involved. We also have an outreach committee that Alex, who's not on today, leads, but reaching out to new members, how can we get more people involved? So there's lots of work to be done, lots of ways to plug in. I know I went through it pretty quickly, but you're definitely welcome to reach out to me at my email, mebryce@gmail.com, and we can see how to get plugged in. So any questions about 350? Renee, I see you might be talking, but I'm not sure.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Maybe just a comment. I'm involved in, we have a green team at our church, which I'm involved in, and an organization called Faith in Place. I don't know if you know
Yes.
the organization. I'm involved with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think very highly of 350.org. Bill McKibben.
Yes,
And that,
exactly.
yeah, just
Yeah.
like just an amazing man. And
He is.
I guess I'm wondering, did he step down in terms of a leadership role? What's his relationship right now to the?
Yes, he did. So he was the founder, along with 7 university students. They each took a continent in 2007 and launched this climate change mobilization. And then he was still part of the board, but I think, I'm not sure if Sylvia or Jerry, I think he might have even stepped away from the board. I think he's just swamped. Like he has a lot going on and was kind of pretty tired, I think ready to pass the torch a little bit on that, but he still does do a lot of
Right.
interviews, podcasts, so yeah, and writing. So he still does a lot of writing for different publications. But yeah, I do think I think he said in an email he wrote to the 350 International Organization, said he'd still always be a part of it and there for us. But yeah, took a step away from the leadership roles.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to add anything, Jerry or Sylvia.
Yeah, I'm sure you all saw his 60 Minutes presentation, but yeah, he was on 60 Minutes like maybe a month or two ago.
Okay, I actually missed that, but I'll
Yeah,
have to go
you
find
can
it.
Google it. Yeah,
Yeah.
find it, but it was, yeah, really incredible. But anyway, I guess I just wanted to say that I really respect the work that your organization does, and
Thank you.
I'm already kind of maxed on my volunteer
Yeah.
time, but
Understandable, yeah.
I really do. I think of all the organizations, yours is one that shines, so thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank
And
you
I
so
will be at
much.
Lobby Day. I'll be at the Lobby thing next week, so
Oh,
maybe.
great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Glad to hear it. Thank you so much for coming and
Yeah,
for your
no,
kind words.
and thank you, Mary Beth, too. That was a great presentation. Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks
thanks,
for
Mary
having
Beth.
me. Thank you. Can you hear me? Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
Okay, well, if that's it, I think we can adjourn and celebrate for those of us who voted for Biden.